Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Pilosopo Podcast. I'm your host. My name is Jiggy Jr., and today we have one of our few returning guests. He is a cycling enthusiast. He's a cyclist. He is a column contributor of Manila Bulletin. He's also a vinyl DJ, a lawyer, a top-notch lawyer, and the former Comelec commissioner, Goyo Larazabal. Hi, Goyo.
Thanks for having me here in your podcast, Pai. It's an honor.
Thank you so much for doing this. I know you're very tired from your lawyering and from your DJing, which is, to be honest with you, is quite a interesting skill set, lawyer and DJ.
Definitely. Not many people can do. Not many people can do what we do, and it's an interesting mix.
It's an interesting combination, to say the least. Okay, Goyo, you know, we see a lot of people participating in threads on Facebook discussions. You watch a lot of news on television, and sometimes, in your mind, you're part of the conversation, but you don't really fully understand the top issues of the day. I know you're a very well-versed, well-read, and you're a pretty smart person. And if you don't mind, this interview is for you to guide us through the forest of information of the issues of the day. And one of the first things that I'd like you to discuss is the conversation about a recession that is happening right now. People are saying all over the headlines that the Philippines is in a recession. I know that a recession, it's been a long time since we had a recession in the Philippines. In fact, we could probably go back 20 years, right? When was the last recession that we ever had, Goyo? And explain to us what a recession is, what it means to everyone.
Basically, it's when the economy contracts in two successive quarters.
Okay.
To simplify it, it's when there is less economic activity in the country. And that's what happened in the Philippines in the first and second quarter, where because of the lockdown, because of constraints in movement, and less transportation facilities, what happened was that less people spent money, less people went around, so the economy contracted. And because of that, I think this second quarter we contracted by we were negative 16.5%. That's really bad. That's the worst in Southeast Asia.
So when was the last time we had a recession? Would you remember that? And what did it look like?
I think it was the Asian financial crisis in the 90s. That's about 30 years ago, I think. Yeah. And what happened was that, again, the economy contracted. It was less than 10%, less than negative 10% yata at that time. It was bad, but because of, I guess, the stable financial structure of the Philippines, we were able to get out of it faster than most other Southeast Asian countries. However, I think that was different because other countries are doing better than the Philippines right now. In fact, we are the worst, and others are on the road to recovery. Tayo, we're still lagging way behind. So we need to catch up. We need to do things better.
It seems to me that some nations have not really declared that they are officially on a recession. Is it just the Philippines that is on a recession, or our neighboring Asian countries have they already declared that their economy is also in a recession of sorts?
Well, there's no choice. I mean, say if the numbers and the data show that there is a contraction for two successive quarters, you are in a recession, whether you like it or not. So I think the point is, what's the extent of the economic impact of the virus? And like I mentioned earlier, the Philippines is bearing it's a bigger burden on the Philippines now as compared to other countries, because we had the longest lockdown in the world, and when you have a lockdown, people can't go out and spend and eat, etc. Um, so there's not much economic activity, and that's what other countries are trying to encourage now, for people to spend. Um, Vietnam is doing much better. Even Hong Kong with the second wave yata, they're still doing okay. New Zealand, I guess, is one of the role models. South Korea, but going back to the point, no, is we need to do things better. We need to have a medical approach to solving this challenge. Uh, Normally, the most basic of plan is the triple T. So test, trace, and treat people. Um, we haven't done that in the extent that we should, and that's causing a lot of problems now.
So the reason why we have no economic activity is because we are on a lockdown. We're in a quarantine.
Yes.
People are quarantined in their homes, right? So they cannot go out, they cannot spend, and all that stuff. So that's probably probably the main reason why the government wants to open up the economy. But let's just say we open up the economy already, and people still don't have the capacity to spend because maybe their jobs have disappeared, or they don't make as much as they once made before the coronavirus. So what happens if a scenario like that, which is probably likely, when we open up the economy, but still people aren't spending as much as they once did, let's say 6 months ago?
Well, surprisingly enough, there's a lot of people purchasing things online now.
Correct, yeah.
But those people, instead of purchasing things online, should be purchasing things from brick and mortar stores,
Yeah.
from stores inside in the mall. So how do you convert that? But how do you do it in such a way that it's safe for the people to go around? I guess people will look at New Zealand, but they will say, New Zealand has just a limited number of people there as compared to the Philippines. So the more ideal situation is looking at what they did in Vietnam. Vietnam has about approximately the same population as the Philippines, 95 to about 110 million. And what they did is they had a holistic approach that even if there was an outbreak in one of the cities, they were able to test right away the citizens, the residents, do contact tracing, and treat those who were infected. So you try to limit the damage, and unfortunately, that's where we are lacking.
So to stimulate the economy, people have to spend. If people don't have anything to spend, the economy will not be stimulated.
But
So I think
there's money. I'm saying there is money. I mean, say not as much as before, and not with everyone, but people surprisingly have money now. You see, like the luxury car industry. There's a lot of people buying luxury cars now, diba? Um, and entry level cars there are, but you have to look at it from from a holistic point of view. That yes, there's a lot of luxury cars being sold, a lot of entry level, but the mid level vehicles are not selling as much because that's the vehicles the middle class buy. And normally when they buy mid-level vehicles, SUVs, they do financing. The banks are not releasing loans now because of the situation. So it's it's a bit complicated, pero the idea there is you have to open up the economy, but do it in such a way that it's safe for everyone. You don't just open up the economy and all hell breaks loose, diba? So you have to do it such a way with science and data as your guide.
so. The rationale, of course, because we are talking about COVID-19 in the background of a recession that we were discussing earlier, is that people get the confidence to go out and spend their money, go out and work and make money, so they have the capacity to spend. By the way, Goyo, going back to New Zealand, I don't know if you heard about this. Just a few hours ago, they just got returned to level 3 lockdown because they already confirmed community infection, community spread. So they're back on level 3 lockdown in New Zealand right now. I just got word from our good friends from New Zealand. So now they're back on lockdown. This is a country of 5 million people. We're a country of 100 or so, or 109 million people, right? Or more or less, something like that. So the event, in the event of us opening up and then closing back again.
Yeah, wait, there's a fallacy there. The fallacy is that you say that New Zealand can do it because they have only 5 million citizens. Yeah. But look at what they're doing in Vietnam. No country can expect to be free from outbreaks, but you need good leadership to ensure that if an outbreak happens, you're ready. What did New Zealand do today? What New Zealand did today was they immediately took medical and scientific steps to test, trace, and treat those who were infected. So you just don't have a lockdown. A lockdown is basically delaying the impact of the injury. What you need to do is, for example, if I have a wound, I'm shot, somebody shoots me, the lockdown is basically bringing you to a hospital and prepping you, but you still need the surgery. So that's where the medical and scientific approach to solving this challenge is applicable. So whether you're South Korea, whether you're in Vietnam, whether you're in Thailand, or whether you're in Taiwan or even Australia, what's important is leadership to ensure that if something happens, you're ready.
So some are saying, Goyo, that it is our form of government that is responsible for us not being able to act on our response for COVID-19 the right way. They're saying that if we were a federal instead of a republic, things would probably be better in terms of our response. So let's go to that subject matter, Goyo, because that's also a very detail-filled subject. When they say that, what do they mean? That we could have responded to this pandemic better if we were a federal government instead of a republic. Can you explain to a layman what that means, what they're talking about?
You don't even need to go federal. You just need to empower the LGUs. And that's what's happening now. You empower the LGUs using local government code to allow them to have more freedom to address the problems in their locality. In fact, to refute that, many of the LGUs are doing good, not just because they're implementing programs. The fact that they're doing good is because of leadership of the local officials. So that doesn't have anything to do with the structure of government. That has something to do with leadership.
So it's not the framework, it's not the structure, it has something to do with the individual. But Goyo, this is a pandemic. This is an event that is happening not just in Cebu, not just in Manila, but all over the country and all over the world. And if you really think about it, the response all over the world should be the same because we're fighting a common enemy. So wouldn't it be weird that, for example, Baguio does well because their government official did this, because it has leeway. Shouldn't we have a more unified response to a universal enemy?
There is. That is the point of why other countries are successful, because you have a unified national approach to solving the problem implemented by the different LGUs, but with variances to address the nuances in the different localities. But there is one goal, one path that everybody takes, but kanya-kanyang diskarte lang on how to address the problems. But there is unison in in their in the approach they take. And problema, you don't have that in the Philippines, unfortunately.
So Goyo, maybe
Yeah,
you can just try to understand why they're saying there are few corners out there that are saying that we could have responded to this pandemic better if we were a federal government. Where are they coming from? What do they mean by that? Do you understand when they say that?
I do, but
What's
you
their
know,
rationale?
basically it's giving more autonomy to the LGUs to address the problems in their locality. Um, but the local government code gives them that opportunity to address their problems. The fact that there are some LGUs that are performing really well now, for example, Iloilo, Baguio City, Makati, Valenzuela, the fact that they are doing well shows that it is possible to do good under the current system. The fact that the others are not doing as well, maybe they should talk with the other LGUs who have success to learn what they can do to make things better.
It's funny that when you watch the what's happening in the United States and what's happening in the Philippines, it's so similar, right? It's just a difference in magnitude in terms of the size of the country, because I think the United States is 300 million plus people or more, and we are only 109 or so Filipinos. Is the United States what you would say a federal form of government, Goyo?
No, I think it's not really the form of government of the US which is causing the problems. I think it's more of leadership or
Leadership
lack
again.
thereof. Yes,
No, but I'm asking you: is the United States a federal form of government?
it is
Would,
in a sense. Yes, but in a sense, but there are some other federal governments that are doing well.
yeah, yeah.
Germany's federal government, but they're doing excellent, di ba? So
So
the argument that you're saying, the argument that say people are saying no, um, it boils down to leadership. Unfortunately, we can go on forever and people will say federal, presidential, but it boils down to leadership.
now my question actually is this: uh, the United States is a federal form, has a federal form of government. Is that the kind of federalism that some of our brothers and sisters here in the Philippines are espousing? That United States kind of federalism, or is it a different strain of federalism that the
Depends
people?
depends who you're talking to. There are
So there's
several
no, they
there
haven't
are several
agreed yet on what strain yet.
there are several advocates. I know some. No, I give them advice. I share my thoughts.
Mhm.
Some are really good. They're passionate about it, but it really depends who you're talking to as to what type of federal government the Philippines should have. So without even without even going to details, you can't say this will work because it might not be the type of federal government other peoples or other advocates have in mind.
So we've always copied the United States. Our Constitution is based on the United States, and so many other things that are happening in the United States are happening in the Philippines. We're like a mirror image of what's happening in the United States in so many ways. Um, don't you think that more likely than not that most of the people who are espousing federalism are looking up to the United States as
Oh,
the
oh,
ideal?
nope,
Who do you
nope.
think, aside from the United States, what other strains of federalism are
There
they looking at?
in Asia, there's in Europe. It really depends who you're talking to. So I don't want to get into that. I don't want to get into details because we'll end up talking for days on days if we talk about details.
But what you're saying is, in a nutshell, it really doesn't matter what form of government, whether it's presidential, a federal form of government, it really boils down to the leadership. And I think
Yes.
the buck stops with the biggest and the highest leader in the land, which is the president, right?
Also, the people who head the agencies, if an agency is not performing well, it's incumbent on the officials to do better or let other people do things better.
Um,
So that's it, man. So just run it. It's like a company. If you're a president of a company, if you own a company, you see a department head not performing well, what do? You let that person continue fumbling? No, you either fire him or replace him or demote him or put him somewhere else and put somebody else in charge who can do things better.
We mentioned New Zealand earlier, and Jacinda, their prime minister, is such a youthful and passionate woman. And I'm wondering, Goyo, in the Philippines and in the United States, our leaders, our presidents are relatively senior. They're 70-year-old. Our president is over 70 years old, and Trump is, I think, 72, and Biden is 77. I'm curious, Goyo, how do you feel about seniority versus meritocracy? Uh, uh, where is the Philippines? It looks like we're still a very seniority type of people, right? We really look up to the older people, and the young and up and coming politician normally don't win until they reach a certain age. Am I correct in saying that, or that's a bad assumption?
Not necessarily, but the Philippines, you look at also, for example, the president of Brazil, diba? He's not really young. Um, well, you look at Russia. There are many countries that are not doing as well. Um, maybe because their leaders are. Maybe it's because the mindset of the leaders. You mentioned New Zealand, but you also have to look at Taiwan, Vietnam, and other countries who are doing well. These are countries that are led by not only women but young leaders, diba?
Exactly.
So there has to be a balance. For example, if you're a bit old, you bring in the youth para they might give you ideas that you might not think of, diba? And they also bring in energy which some members of the administration might not have as much as they did before. So there has to be a balance. It's not all young, it's not all old. There has to be a balance of young and old, because you have to look at it not from the point of view just because of age or seniority, but capability and capacity. You you put a person inside, you put in a person in charge of a position, not because you know him, like her, he's your relative, he's your friend, but because of your determination that that person can perform the functions and duties of that office he will lead. It doesn't matter if he's old or young. Importante he's capable of performing the duties.
We're talking about the age of a leader in the background of a pandemic, and I think running a nation is really a young woman, a young man's job, because number one, in the background of a pandemic, again, an older, more senior leader could get sick, and can get seriously sick, and the possibility of that person dying is pretty high. But if you have a young, vibrant, and healthy leader, the likelihood of that person catching the virus or getting affected by a virus is less. So I think running a nation with all of its challenges is really a young person's job.
Well, yeah, youth helps, no? Pero there has to be also an equal percentage of capability, competency, and experience. Kasi yeah, you have the youth, you have the vigor, you have the energy, the passion, but you don't have experience. So if something happens, um, something bad happens, and if you are ill equipped to rise to the occasion, even if you're young, even if you have all the energy, but if you can't do a good job, wala rin, di ba? So there has to
Yeah.
be a balance. There has to be a balance talaga.
Let's talk about another subject which is related to this, Goyo.
Yeah.
Oligarchy.
Okay.
I've heard this before. I've been hearing it again these past couple of weeks, that the Philippines is not really a democracy; it is an oligarchy. Explain to
Okay.
everyone what that means. What does an oligarchy mean, and why is the Philippines an oligarchy instead of a
Okay.
democracy? Really?
Okay. If you look at the definition of oligarchy, it means it's a small group of people having control of a country, organization, institution.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is that it's supposed to be a clique, a small group of people who's supposed to run the affairs of the government.
Hmm.
So who's the oligarchy here? I mean, say, who are
What
we
oligarchy
referring
mean?
to? Who are we referring to?
Mm-hmm.
Who are we
Because
referring?
because like for example, in here in Cebu or local politics, if you notice, if you observe who the donors are, these are the same people, and they give money to both leading candidates. So these are people that regularly contribute and politicians go to for funding. So this group of people that, because we don't have a donation mechanism like in the United States, where individuals can give like 100 pesos to donate for the campaign of Mr. So and so. So it's really a small group of people that donate and fund a campaign on the local level. I imagine that also happening on a national scale. That these are the same individuals, the same companies, the same clique of people that donate to a presidential candidate or a senatorial candidate. So that's why people are thinking that we're really an oligarchy.
Okay, my question is that you're looking at the donors who contribute or campaign contributors, diba?
Yeah.
Why are you not asking about those elected who are performing the duties and functions of the office they were elected to? Meaning to say, for example, I was selected president or vice president, diba? Or mayor,
Okay.
whatever. If I have enough political will, I will do what is right.
Mm-hmm.
I will do what is right for everybody. By succumbing to doing things not for the general population, but or the majority, then it's not about the people donating. It's about you being able or not being able to live up to the standards of the office you were elected to. Kasi, okay, yes, all oligarchs or the money contributors give money to a candidate and he wins, di ba? But if
Mm-hmm.
that candidate has enough political will to do the right things, then it doesn't matter if he was supported by a million Filipinos or just one or two Filipinos who had a lot of money. If he does things right, everybody will benefit. So it's not just about. It's easy to blame that the boogeyman that oligarchy is to blame. It's not. It's down to political will and leadership. If you can perform the duties of the office you're elected to without fear or favor, then you deserve to be reelected.
But what happens to those individuals, those so-called oligarchs that have donated to your campaign? They will have favors to ask. They
Yeah.
will want you to do this and do that. And
Yeah. Okay, but if
and you
even
cannot. Some of the politicians, whether they like it or not, they owe these people their win. And all that. So you put the politicians in a very difficult situation because they really can't say no to these people that have supported them since the beginning.
there's a limit to what you can do. If they ask for help and if it's legal, do it. If it's good for the general public, then do it. But if it's not, no one has a gun to your head to force you to do something you don't like. If you don't like to do it, you won't. It's pretty simple.
Yeah, but then you will not get their support when you don't like what they're asking for, and then you won't have the money to win the next election.
But if the people see that you're doing good for everyone or the majority of the residents in the city, municipality, province, or country, then they will vote for you. There have been candidates who have won without a big campaign chest. So it's not impossible. The fact that we we go to we go to that narrative that that they were supported by some moneyed friends, then he won't be doing good for whatever position he was voted for. I think that's shortchanging people, good people who are in government, good people who won an office. They can they can do good things. Um, give them enough credit. Give them enough credit, but also hold them responsible for the acts and promises they made during the campaign.
But you can't discount the crucial role of money in an election, right, Goyo? I mean, without money, you can't win an election, period.
Yeah, but it's not all or nothing, di ba? It's not just because they gave you money, you sell your soul to them. That's wrong. There has to be a balance. And the fact that people say, no, oligarchs, you supported, no, my God, that's too simplistic an approach. And there's so many things wrong with that argument that just because there's a few people supporting some candidates, they should be removed. You remove them and replace them with another oligarch who will do the same thing. But it's silly. I mean, say
Yeah.
it's really silly
Mm-hmm.
that you say, oh, let's remove the oligarchs. Then what's going to happen after a short time? There's a new one who replaces the old one you remove. Diba?
Actually, Goyo, if I remember correctly, I'm a political junkie, so I observe a lot of campaigns. These so-called oligarchs, they fund both campaigns. If for example it's between two top candidates, an incumbent and a promising new candidate, they support both the candidates. So whoever wins, they're under the pocket of the oligarch who supported them.
Or
What are your thoughts on that?
but it's not most. It's also it's it might be that they just don't want to be hassled because if they support one candidate and the other candidate wins, ipitin sila, di ba? So they support
Yeah,
everyone
I know.
lang, di ba? So, and in a number of cases, I don't think they ask for big favors. They just want to be sure that they don't get harassed doing their business. And a lot of people, they just want things to be done right, that they will be treated fairly. And how they achieve that, it's kanyang diskarte na yan. But I mean, say it's people are up blowing out of proportion the notion that we're in such mess because of the oligarchs or not. I mean, say there are many other factors that cause us to be in such a rut now. It's the structure
Um,
of how we do
our
things.
form of government, it's not about that. It really depends on who the leader is. That's what your initial thoughts were regarding federalism and presidential.
I'm not saying
But
wait. I'm not saying that federalism is bad. I'm just saying that at the heart of it, it's the leadership which
yeah,
really
correct. Yeah,
matters.
yeah. So my question is, if it's just about leadership, how about fixing the way we elect them? How about fixing the way we disclose donations? Since we're afraid of oligarchs, why don't we have like a very transparent, like the ones that they employ in the United States, wherein they declare the individuals' names and all that stuff? Do we have that already here in the Philippines? Since you were a
We,
Comelec commissioner,
we
are the
have
donations of individuals, companies, and all that stuff transparent? Do we know every single centavo that goes to the war chest of a politician, of a candidate?
well starting 2010, it was much better monitoring than previous elections, and
Okay.
there is a campaign finance unit of Comelec now who sifts through all the sources, statement of contribution expenditures filed by the different candidates and party list organizations. However, those are things that you can't fix overnight. you have to have not only better monitoring, but also you have to revise the pertinent laws. I mean, say the limit for campaigns to spend on an election in an election is very unrealistic now. So there are bills pending now in the House of Representatives to increase the per voter limit. So if that passes, that will make things more realistic. However, um, taking off from what I said, no, na from 2010, 2013, 2016, 2019, there's more better monitoring. It's a gradual process. Na you don't expect things to be better within 5 or 10 years. That will take a lot of time to fix such a big problem. Um, we're better off monitoring now than we were before. There are still a lot of problems, but we're on the right path. However, having said that, there are still many things that can be done to improve the system, one of which is legislation. By improving the election laws in the Philippines to compensate or to adjust to the current times. I mean, say, our, our election laws is still based on BP 881, which is the time of Marcos, diba? So, um, you need to update the omnibus election code, not just have special laws, but you have to have an updated omnibus election code.
Goyo, help me understand, because in my simple mind, it seems very simple. Money that's coming in your war chest, you declare it, and you spend it.
Yes.
If your spending is more than what your war chest that you declared, that was from donors, there's something wrong. It looks fairly simple. Money in your war chest, you declare this month I made 100 million pesos in donations, and next month I'm going to spend all of that 100 million pesos in advertising. It
Yes.
looks fairly simple in my simpleton mind, right? Is it about the laws that is difficult? That's why you can't really fully implement transparency when it comes to the campaign.
Well, it's more than that, no? You're correct that it's actually a very simple concept that money you get from donations is should be the same money you spend, right? Within the limits of the office you're running for.
Yeah.
However, there are some nuances. For example, what if a donor does not report or declare his donation, diba? So
Anonymous.
yeah, may say he you don't declare it. May say you don't declare it at all. So for example, you Jiggy, you're running for president. I declare 10 million. I can declare the 10 million, or I can just give you 10 million without signing any document, and I just give you the money, diba? That's the same thing, but on one side I do declare it, the other side I don't declare it. So ikaw, if you receive that 10 million officially donated to you, you have to declare that 10 million. You have to
Yeah.
give a breakdown of how you spent it. If you did not declare the 10 million, if that 10 million was not declared, you don't have to declare it. You don't have to make a breakdown, di ba?
Yeah, but you have 10 million pesos that you're gonna have to spend for the election, and if you account for the the streamers, the posters, the ads that you placed on radio and television, hey, you're 10 million pesos more. Where did that come from? Right?
Okay.
I mean,
Okay. So broadcast, you have to submit performance contracts to Comelec, di ba? So
yeah, yeah,
if there's a person who takes out an ad, you have to do a contract and performance record, di ba? Na your ad came out on these days at this
yeah.
time. However, when you print out streamers, if you print out 1 million streamers, but the invoice also only says 10,000, who's going to say that it's actually 1 million streamers, not 10,000, di ba? Who's going to say that? The printer? He won't, di ba? You, the candidate? You won't. So there are aspects of the SOSE reporting, statement of contribution expenditures reporting, that can be monitored and audited. But there are some that are more difficult. That's more difficult. These are the loopholes that have to be addressed.
I
That
think
have
what
to
you
be
should
plugged.
do is make accredited printing presses for, under Comelec, meaning to say all of you can only print your election materials in these printing presses. So that
Oh no,
the
no! You cannot do that. You cannot do that. Why? Why? Let me say. You know how difficult it is. There are over 1,000 cities and municipalities all over the Philippines. So, and if there, for example, in Cebu, if there are how many people running for mayor, vice mayor, councilors, say 50. Those 50, they have their own printing presses, diba? They have their own friends. So if Comlex says, no, it's only accredited, who's to say that this should be accredited and the other one should not be accredited? There's that will open a can of worms. I'm telling you. Sobrang hirap yun. It's a good idea, but operationalizing it is difficult because there are nuances on the ground that might not be might be difficult to address if you do that. For example, ako if I'm running for councilor or for mayor or for president, pagkatapos doon ang cousin ko owns a printing press, but that printing press is not accredited by Comelec. Why should Comelec stop me from having that printing press print out the posters for me running for president when I get a good deal as compared to a printing press that offers me worse rates, diba? That's oppressive.
But there is a way for us to eventually be able to monitor everything, right? I mean, that's where what you're
Difficult.
saying. It's
It's
just
difficult.
difficult now,
It's difficult.
but there is probably a way in which we can monitor as much as we can every single centavo that comes in the war chest of a candidate. So, which do you think is more important, Goyo? Election reform or form of government reform? Which one should be changed first so that we can come up with a better society?
Election reform, sorry, dog. Election reform or form of government.
Yeah,
Hmm.
which is more urgent in your mind?
You know, if I say election reform,
Bah,
the people who want to change the form of government will lynch me. If I say form of government, the election advocates,
your truth, Goyo. It doesn't matter. It's just your truth.
you can do both.
Okay.
You can do both at the same time. Because if you do just a change of form of government without changing the way elections is done, then you're 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 doing things half baked, diba? So if you're going to change the system, might as well also improve the way elections is conducted. Conversely, if you're going to change the way elections is conducted, might as well look at also ways to improve the system as compared to what we have now, diba? It's a win-win. But it's kasi you can do it naman na you can do both at the same time. Actually, you should do more. Change of the system, uh, next change of the way election is conducted, change of how how people run things, the structure of the different offices, etc. There are many ways. There are many things that need to be done, but you can do it simultaneously but gradually. Kasi the others, they want, no, I want a radical change. I want everything changed right now. It's not. It happened in several countries before. It was a recipe for disaster because they changed too many things at one time. Hindi kaya. But if you do things gradually, eventually, in a few, in some, within a period, you'll be able to get your goal. Meaning, for example, you have a goal of 10 things. I want 10 things done. You can do those 10 things by doing things slowly. You say, okay, what's a priority? I do the first two within the first 3 years. Then after I'm stable with the first two agendas, first two objectives, I then go to objective number 3, then number 4. So I do things slowly, gradually. By the end of, instead of doing it at one go, siguro in 10 or 20 years, I can achieve the same things and provide a more stable country in the process.
So you're saying that we will roll out these reforms gradually so that it won't shock the system, right? But di ba, in the Philippines, it's really tradition that the administration, whatever the previous administration did, we're gonna scratch it all and start from zero. Do you still get that sense, Goyo, that the administrations always start at zero, or do you see a lot of continuity now in the past few administrations, that some of the reforms that were instituted and began by this administration was being continued by the next? What are your thoughts on continuity?
Okay, kasi there are some government positions that are political and coterminous. However, there are many thousands, hundreds of thousands of positions that are governed by civil service rules. Meaning to say, yes, the head of the agency is appointed by the president or the governor or mayor. However, those below him or her have been there for 10, 15 years or 20 years, di ba? So, those people under that political appointee have institutional knowledge. The problem here is that there are some political appointees who tap on the knowledge, institutional knowledge of those who have been there for a long time, and he doesn't start from zero, but he starts from the last point where the person he replaced left off. Ang problema na, the problem with it is due to the politics in Philippines. In many cases, they normally try to erase everything the previous head of agency or head of political subdivision instituted. That's wrong, di ba? Kasi it's not we should be policy driven, not politics and personality driven. We might disagree, we might have skirmishes during the campaign, but at the end of the day, what's important is the welfare of the residents of the municipality, city, or political subdivision we were elected to. We need to be politically mature.
But are we? And speaking of politics, Goyo, let's go from local or national politics to geopolitics for a little bit, because I think it's in the forefront now. A
Yes.
few weeks ago, I heard that the president was getting a vaccine from China. Now, just the other day, he said that we're going to get a vaccine from Russia. All of these countries are rushing to help the Philippines with a vaccine. And lost in all this is the United States, our longtime ally. Why do you think Russia and China are ahead of the United States in voicing out their support for the Philippines? Where is the United States in all of this?
Oh wait, sorry. Just to clarify, the pronouncements made that China will provide the Philippines vaccines or Russia will provide Philippines vaccines. Were those statements made by Russia and China or those statements made by Philippine government officials? Because you have to differentiate, because if it's the Russian government who says that no, we're going to donate to the Philippines, we're going to prioritize the Philippines, then that means to say they're rushing. But if it's us saying that no, Russia will provide us or China will provide us, that's a different story, because it's not them saying, it's we telling them that we're going to get from them, not them reaching out to us. It's us reaching out to them. In terms of politics, that's very important. You need to differentiate that. Sige. Naputol.